Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Brian Turner here with the No Stress Midwest podcast. We're in season 7. As I've kind of said, the emphasis is professional athletes. What does it take to get there? And more importantly, what does it take to stay there? Today's episode, we're joined by Zarek Valentin of Minnesota United. Zarek, what's going on, my man?
What's up, man? How's it going? Long time no see.
It is. I'm doing good. It feels good to see your face again. It's been about a year or so that we met at the B course. Um,
Yep.
got your B license. How do you feel? Do you feel any smarter as a player, or is it the same?
I have more appreciation for coaches. Let's just say that the planning process and I would say the ease and smoothness of training was
Yeah,
something I took for granted. And then suddenly you got to set up these sessions and it's like, whoa, this is a lot harder than I thought.
yeah, yeah. No, we were down there last year. There's been a few guys from the course. We've got Mikey that's going to be a guest on here. We
Nice.
had Will Bruin who was a guest on here. So I'm glad that you were able to hop on. I know this week's a little different for you guys. At Minnesota, you were saying there's international break. You had just a short week before. As you're getting to the end of the season, what's your mindset? How are you kind of looking at finishing off one part, but then knowing playoffs are there and starting, essentially another season?
Yeah, the team's been in pretty good run of form the past 7 games. I think we're 5-1-1, so we're peaking at the right time.
Yeah,
And I would say for right now, we're in the refinement part of our game. We're not necessarily going to develop new tactics. We're not going to change system. We're not going to do anything like that. So it's just sharpening the knife, so to speak, and trying to
yeah.
go into playoffs as crisp and as I would say sharp as possible because that's the most important thing. Because teams have shown in the past, if you can get on a little bit of a run, then you can, enter into playoffs in a good moment and hopefully make a deep run in playoffs.
No, for sure. And I mean, just in life, we talk about peaking, right? You never want to peak in high school. That's never a good thing. It's always at the end of the season, right? That you want to start hitting that stride. Here in America, at least, where we have a playoff system and we
Yeah.
have something else that comes after. Um, so with you, what is it like? I mean, you've been around 14 years as a professional athlete. That's wild. I coach kids who aren't even that old, and not to age you because we're the same age. But what's it like now with you trying to peak at the right time, going to playoffs in year 14, than like in year 1, year 2? Is it the same process, or have you evolved with with the age and the times, let's say?
Evolved. You mean I got older? I would say the biggest thing is the recovery aspect.
Yeah,
When you're a kid, you could play a 90-minute game. When I was a rookie, and I could turn around and play right away. Now,
yeah.
now it takes a few days to recover from a 90-minute match. So I would say that's definitely one of these things that comes in with time,
Hmm.
unluckily. But part of that is also there's a benefit of knowing your body, knowing exactly what you need to
Yeah.
recover, the little details that you have to take to put yourself in the best spot to play at the highest level you can on the weekend. And
Hmm.
again, that comes with age, and that it's a little bit tougher, but at the same time, you have that knowledge. So for me, just trying to again sharpen that knife as much as possible going into this last little stretch of the season.
No, for sure. And I talked about, right, you've been in the league for a while, and that's not a bad thing because in this case you've seen the game grow so much, I'm sure, in that 14-year span, right? So what do you see has been some of the big differences, like in the locker room, the recovery equipment, the sports physios, the nutritionists, how has that changed since your first year coming into Chivas, right?
Yep, my first year was 2011. That was the
Okay.
last year in MLS where each team played each other one time or twice, sorry, home and away. So that's pretty typical in England or any other league
Yeah.
in Europe, but that stopped because of the travel and the growing league. So to date myself a little bit there, but I mean, I could talk about this for an hour, but I'll give you the short answer in terms of just everything has been, I would say, improved for the player benefit, right? When I came in, the amount of recovery stuff we had access to, the boots, we didn't have boots. We only had like massage sticks and foam rolls. Now you have cryo, you can float, you can
Yeah.
do the the boots for your legs to where it squeezes the blood flow out. We used to just have massages, and that was pretty
Yeah.
much it. And as a rookie, I wasn't even allowed to get one. So everything in that sense has taken a step forward, but also in terms of the play in the locker room, I would say that it's become a lot more of a multicultural league. We were told this year it's actually the most multicultural football league in the world. So it has the most nations,
Awesome.
which means in the locker room, there's a lot different of connections. Obviously, you'll kind of gravitate towards people that speak the same language, similar experiences and stuff. But um, for me, I've prided myself of kind of being a floater a little bit in some of this locker room glue that can speak Spanish, that can connect to college guys, that can connect to some of the older players and talk to the younger players as well. So that's changed dramatically, and also just the spending, the facilities has been um, it's been transformational in terms of the facilities we had when I was a rookie to now the multi-million dollar stadiums and training facilities, and the care facilities are amazing. So it's taking a lot of incredible steps, and it's only going to get better. And again, as these owners get a little bit jealous of each other and want to try to one up each other,
Try to
that's
top.
great
Yep.
because of the player,
Yep.
because the player will benefit from that. So I'm all for that jealousy and that game between the owners.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point in the locker room. It's so important. You have right the people that speak one language, maybe the people that played international here, maybe whatever that is. But having in your case, right, the veteran status and being able to understand how to connect with the college, the rookie guys, how to relate with the guy who just got his first national team call up, maybe the guy who is on his sixth team in 7 years. I think that's so important for a culture of a team to just have a guy like that. And you've got so much experience as a player from your success in college to playing international to playing in the MLS. So it's good that you're not using your powers for evil, right? Um,
Just a little bit.
just so yeah, that's fair. We always will. So we kind of jumped into where you are right now, right? You're 14. Let's rewind back. Um, you're playing in college. You're at Akron, 2 year starter, which I feel like in a Division 1 level is very difficult to come in as a freshman and start every game. I believe you picked up some awards, whether with your freshman sophomore year, but the biggest one that you won was the national championship. So talk to us. I'm thinking, was it Caleb Porter was there at the time?
Yep. Caleb
Right.
Porter's our coach. Yep.
So Caleb was there. Were you there with Darlington? Was he there?
Oh, I was there with Darlington. All
Yeah,
right.
you were there with Nagby. So that was when Akron really got put on the map, right? So I want to know, what was that culture like? How did you get into a program like Akron, get on the eye of Caleb Porter, and then come in as a freshman and basically say, "Hey, hold my boots. I'm going to do this job."
Well, thanks for the intro there. That was nice. Little trip down memory lane.
I did a little bit of
I
research. I did a little bit of
I
research.
I remember I was at a U18 or U20 national team camp playing center back, and I had a pretty good camp, and was fortunate enough to have Akron reach out to me a few weeks later. Caleb was pretty adamant about me coming into the team and pretty much being the quarterback of the team because I was playing in center back, but the way we kind of shifted, I ended up almost like a libero in the middle of a three.
Yeah.
And he basically said, "Listen, I want you to be the quarterback of the team to dictate the tempo and to really start our attacks." And I was like, "Great, no problem. Like, sign me up." It just so happened that I ended up playing with two Herman Trophy winners in Teal Bunbury and in Darlington Nagby in back-to-back years, um, and multiple professionals. I had incredible group of players around me to boost my confidence. And when I would give the ball away in a bad spot, they'd cover me and I would say empower me to continue in that way. But I was just really fortunate to have such an incredible group of guys. Darlington, I could see at that time was going to be something special. To me, he's the greatest MLS player ever. I have my arguments on that side. Obviously, I might be a little biased, but
Oh, he's
in
up
those
there
moments,
for sure. He has to be in that conversation.
yeah, but I just was fortunate. I ended up doing pretty well my rookie year, and heard through the grapevine that potentially some professional scouts thought I might eventually have what it takes. And I always wanted to play pro. My brother played for the Galaxy for a few years, and then in Tampa, and I always wanted to, but never actually thought it would be something realistic until I kind of heard these rumblings. Then after my sophomore year, um, I remember I'll never forget. I'd heard that there was a chance I might be able to go Generation Adidas, so I went to go talk to Caleb Porter, and I said, because you always have to get Caleb's blessing when you leave. So I went to go talk to Caleb and said, "Hey, Caleb, you know." I'm thinking about, potentially, and he goes, stop it right there. I already gave your scholarship away to Will Trapp, who's my teammate here. I gave your scholarship away. You have my blessing. Go be a great professional. It's been awesome working with you and growing. I wish you all the best. And I was like, all right, well, that was a little bit easier than
Well,
I
that was
thought.
good. Hey, didn't
I
even have to
know.
say
So,
anything.
yeah, so I was just, I was really fortunate to be around such good people that really helped propel me to the success that I had.
No, I mean, just the people's names you've mentioned are all, I mean, MLS greats, right? Teal Bunbury had a spell here with Sporting KC, so I remember him there. I mean, Darlington Nagbe is self-explanatory. Will Trapp, national team player, MLS captain, right? So these are all just,
I could keep going. I could keep
yeah,
going. But yeah, I was really fortunate to go to Akron during a time where we had some pretty good players and we all just vibed in terms of we saw the game the same way and our coach empowered us to play the game the same way. And it was this perfect cocktail of, you know, kids that were also really just good kids.
yeah,
We
yeah.
had this cult where we didn't really drink at all. We
Hmm.
were so focused on just we want to win, we want to, and that was our fun.
Yeah.
And again, it was just a perfect cocktail where we, weren't crazy party kids. We enjoyed our team, but we wanted to. Our party was on the field, and when we got
Right.
out there, that's what we enjoyed.
Celebrating a win. That's where the fun
Oh
is,
yeah,
right? No, for sure. And okay, so you lift the trophy up, right? We know that that was your last year there. At the time that you had your hand on that trophy, did you know this was your last game playing with Akron?
I had an inclination. I told Caleb, I promised him before I got there that I wouldn't leave until I got him a national championship, and we were able to accomplish that in our second year. We lost in the final our first year,
Yeah.
and we were able to come back and have a little redemption story. Um, so I had an inclination that that might be the case, but I didn't really fully grasp it until the game finished, and I started to get a phone call or two from people that said, "Hey, this you might have some interest to go pro through the Generation Adidas program." And then one thing led to another, and I was getting drafted, a month or two later.
Yeah. So let's ride that momentum. First round draft pick, Chivas, USA. For the people that maybe not be as experienced as us, let's say, Chivas was an MLS expansion club. It's no longer very short, very brief spell in the MLS. But what was it like? One, being drafted first round. Two, what was it like then uprooting, moving to California? And three, maybe we've passed it, but what was the first moment, your first professional moment where you were like, damn, I'm a pro?
I got one.
Okay,
It's
let's
funny.
hear
I
it.
was
Let's
thinking
hear
about
this.
this. I was thinking about it driving in because I knew we had this scheduled. So it was definitely a little shocking going from Akron, Ohio to Los Angeles. You could ask LeBron James. I'm sure he does it most off seasons.
He's my
Um,
next guest.
but
He's my next guest.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit shocking, and I would say you're you're part of a team that was pretty much one of the best teams in college over the course of 2 years. So we had won. I was not used to losing.
Hmm.
I had lost twice in college, and one was a preseason game, and the other was a national final. Um, or sorry, and Cleveland State. I tried to block that one out, but three times. But yeah, it was definitely a little bit shell shocking, and I didn't really realize the magnitude of everything. I was drafted fourth overall, um, and that was an extremely proud moment for myself and my family. We were in Baltimore, so it was close to home from Pennsylvania. Did have some of my best friends drive down, and my family was there. To share that moment with them was something I'll never forget. And just it was a lot of work. But then I kind of hugged my mom, and she's like, "Well, the work starts now because you got to pro, but you don't just want to fizzle out." So we recalibrated in that sense. But I remember my first day as a professional. I walked in. I had a red PacSun zip up on and Adidas sweatpants. And I remember sitting down and Ante Yazik, who's a longtime Canadian international, played for Rapid Vienna, played for Galaxy and Chivas. I remember sitting down. I was really like sweating nervous.
Yeah.
And I sat down. I just kind of kept to myself. And he goes, "Hey, Valentin." I looked at that. I was like, "Oh, no." Because he knew my brother from time to time. I
Okay.
was like, "Oh." He goes, "Hey, Valentin, whenever you come to work, never ever put some effing sweatpants on ever again in my locker room. This is your place of work. This is our effing job. Never show up like this again. You come dressed for work. All right." Now don't let it happen again. And I remember sitting there going, "Oh my
Crap.
goodness, this is
Crap.
not. We're not in Akron. We're not in
Yeah.
Akron." And it was probably a lot more expletives and everything like that. But
Of course.
that was my first moment, my first day within 10 minutes of sitting down. And to this day, I've never showed up in Adidas sweatpants or Nike sweatpants ever again,
Hey,
ever. I've worn joggers, might be jeans, might be some, little H&M shorts, but
right. No
nothing.
sweats.
It's
Hey,
been ingrained from day one. So for me, that was a I'm not in Kansas anymore moment.
right. I love it. Now, the real question is on the rookie's first day in the locker room, do you implement the same no sweatpants policy?
No, no,
No,
times have
okay.
changed.
Okay. All right.
I will gladly poke fun
There we
and say
go.
they look like a slob, like you just
Yeah.
woke up,
Yeah.
and I'll say it as a joke, but I won't necessarily bring it up too much. I also understand that times are a little different in terms of finances. As
For
a
sure.
Generation Adidas person, you're kind of assumed that you're making a little bit more money than normal
Yeah.
players at times. And I'm not talking crazy. I'm talking like 100,000.
Yeah.
And again, I mean that in the most humble way possible. That I was
Yeah.
making a
Yeah.
good
No,
amount of
for
money.
sure. For sure.
But
For
in
sure.
terms of minimum being, I think 40,000, 32,000 at the time, that's different. But with academy kids, their salaries are much lower than a lot of the guys in our locker room. So
Mm.
I'm never going to necessarily judge someone for wearing a pair of sweatpants. I might poke fun at them if they wear them every single day. And if you're a
Right.
guy in the
Right.
first team locker room, if you're a guy in the first team locker room and you show up like a slob, that then it's no holes barred because
There we go.
you can look presentable. There's also guys that will wear shorts and like a Fear of God top, and it looks presentable. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. You can dress kind of like, I look at Fear of God as kind of like casual style in the sense of where you
Yeah.
can look put together. It doesn't necessarily have to be chinos and a button up, but you can look fashionable. So those guys, no problem. But if you dress like a slob, like you're going to the gym, then you're going to
That's
probably
the
hear from me.
problem. Yep. There we go. That's professionalism, right? That's professionalism right there.
You got to hold them to a standard.
You have to. You have to. So, all right, man. So you go down, you have your first moment there in the locker room. You get through that season. What happens there? I know you make the move to Montreal right after, which is at the time an expansion now, um, part of the MLS, and still has been since its inception. But what was that year like at Chivas? And then knowing that you're going from that situation to an expansion, which is a first time, I guess, in the league. Were you nervous about that crossing borders to Canada? Talk to us about that time.
So the interesting part about my transition to Montreal is I was actually left available in the expansion draft by a mistake from Chivas USA. I was supposed to be protected, but they left me unprotected. And
Jesus.
then I remember Jesse Marsh calling me as I was visiting Akron, and I had a long convo with Jesse, and he goes, "Listen, I'd love to have you on the team, but I need you to be bought into what we're doing here. If you're not, no problem, no skin off your back. I know it's the transition going from Los Angeles as a 20-year-old kid all the way to Montreal for an expansion team, but let me know what you think. I'd love to have you. If not, so then I called my agent, talked to my family, and then I called Ante because Ante became a really good friend. The guy, obviously from day one, who's Canadian, and talked to him about the city and the culture in Montreal. And he goes, "Hey, I I think it'd be a really fun experience for you. Obviously, as a teammate, I don't want to lose you, but this could be a really fun experience to be a part of something special." And I think for me, that one pretty much cemented it. So I called Jesse back and said I'd love to go. Fast forward to our first night, our jersey unveiling, which was February 4th, the
Okay.
day before the Super Bowl, the David Tyree
Yeah.
Sticky Gum
Yeah.
helmet one. Um, and then we actually went out to a bar, grabbed a drink afterwards. My friends and I, again, as a 20-year-old kid, being able to go in, not have to show ID was crazy. Ended up meeting my wife that night. So
Oh, look
the
at
world is
that.
crazy in the way things work. Yeah,
Look
so the
at
world is
that.
crazy in the way things happen. But yeah, so for me, that was kind of by chance it happened, and then I made the decision. Ended up meeting my wife.
I love it. So I know you love when a plan comes together, right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I had this plan the whole time.
so Jesse Marsh, not a small name here in U.S. soccer terms right now. The Canadian national team coach. Maybe that was a precursor. We who knows, right? His time in Montreal started that.
They're in Montreal as we speak.
There it is. So, what was your experience like under Jesse Marsh? Right. I think as of recent, we know him as once again Canadian national team, U.S. national team, potential coach. I think more people probably than not would have liked him in that role. Leeds United, which I think is probably one of his more infamous, that or Salzburg, right? But been at some of these big name clubs. What was your experience like with him as a 20-year-old, just coming after Caleb Porter, right? Who has a very impressive resume and career as well. Kind of talk to us about Jesse Marsh's being bought into what he's doing there.
Yeah, I would say Jesse Jesse's ideas and what he was about didn't really resonate with me until later in my career when I was older and I was a veteran and I got it. As
Okay.
a young 20-year-old, at times you might think a new coach is being hard on you or pushing you too much or maybe not giving you as much love. And I developed that relationship with Caleb. Caleb had a similar relationship with me, but that was over 2 years. And Jesse came in, and from minute one, he was like that. He pushed me to be one of the best player I could be, pushed me to be harder, pushed me to be more physical, tackle, and be more reliable. And a lot of the things you hear him speak about today is still the foundation for how he is as a coach. It's just he's refined his tactics a bit, right? The
Right.
pressing's a little bit different and things
Right.
along those lines. But the core values are there. Jesse would train with us, and he was 30, 38, 39, let's just say. And he was
He was
kick
going at.
people.
He
We
was
would have
going. Yeah.
competition day. So we'd have competition day where we'd split up into teams 5 or 6, and we would just, and this was Tuesday, I think, and we'd do a warm up passing drill, and we would go straight into, you know, 4 teams of 6, and we just play each other 3 times. And he'd be playing, he'd have a jersey on
Good for him.
and competing, and he
Yeah.
was tackling because he basically wanted to set the standard because he thought in his mind at that time, most likely, the easiest way to set the standard is by me doing it where people can see, as opposed to doing it through my words. It's
Yeah.
with my actions.
Yep.
And he did. And
Yep.
again, we didn't have as much success. We went through a lot of ups and downs as a new organization. It's always tough to kind of go in
Mhm.
there as a new expansion club. We've seen of recent they've done better, but in the past, typically expansion clubs really had a lot of transition periods. But um, I learned a lot from Jesse just in terms of the mindset and the standards that need to be need to be held.
Yeah.
And again, I always, I've never spoken to Jesse much recently. Maybe I could have one of my Canadian teammates tell him, but I really thank him for the way he treated me because I didn't. It was one of these things where it was like, you'll know eventually. Like,
Right.
don't worry, you'll get it. And eventually, I was like, holy shit, this
Yeah.
guy. Like, I want to embody everything he was saying. It's just it happened that this was 10 years
Early
ago.
in your career. Yeah. No, and I think
Mhm.
that's a good reflection moment, right? And I think you're probably sick of hearing that from the coaching courses is reflect, reflect, reflect. But that's something that when you look back on and you're like, man, I didn't understand or I didn't appreciate this coach or that moment for what it was until I'm mature and more mature and I'm able to really understand what they were trying to do. Um, so yeah, I
Oh,
think
for sure.
as a coach, I think being able to show the players what it is that you want them to do is very important in how you can gain respect. Now, granted, you've got 2 bad knees and a, and torn ACL. You're probably not going to be running around and zipping balls in. But I think with my experience, being able to show the players that what you're telling them to do, you can do yourself, brings a whole nother level of respect to you as a coach from those guys.
Oh, tell me about it. Again, it's one of these things where you can't see the light through the trees at the moment, but eventually it all makes sense. And that's what something I try to actually tell the younger guys is this might not make sense to you now, but just please trust me. And that's why by having a good rapport, good relationships, it allows you you might get more trust than some other guys because you say, listen, like I care about you. I know about your
Mhm.
family. I know your siblings' names and your parents' names and I've connected. So just trust me that this is going to be something important that you should focus on this. And that's something that I had growing up and something I blindly trusted,
Yeah.
maybe it's to a fault, but something I hope to pass on to some of these younger guys.
For sure. Well, let's talk about you had 2 stints in Norway on loan, right? When you were with Montreal. So that's obviously a different country, a different environment, a different culture. How do you relate the on and off field experiences, both in Norway and here in the U.S.? The locker room, the game day experience, the training facilities, all of that stuff?
Yeah, it's very, very different. Um, when I went to Bodø/Glimt, they were a pretty historical club, Norway's best counterattacking team,
Okay.
in the Arctic Circle, super north. Since I've left, their team has exploded. They played Porto at home in the Europa League,
Oh,
I
shoot.
think a few weeks ago, and they play away at Manchester United here coming up soon. So they've
Okay.
blown up in terms of how good they've gone. But in terms of the lifestyle, it's a city of 50,000 people. I went from Los Angeles, and then in 2 years' time, I was in a city of 50,000 people in the Arctic Circle, and the lifestyle is different, but it's also kind of opposite of Los Angeles in the sense that it's beautiful in its simplicity, if that
Mhm.
makes it any
Mhm.
sense. Because Los Angeles, you how many restaurants are there? A billion.
How many
In Buda,
people?
7,
Yeah, how many
8.
people? A billion,
So it's like
yeah.
they have one Indian restaurant. There's like a bistro, one sushi restaurant, 2 steakhouses, and like a Chinese place, and that's it.
Right.
Oh, they have a pizza spot. Sorry, my bad. There's a
Oh,
pizza
you
spot
gotta
too.
have pizza. Okay, good,
Of
good.
course. So the simplicity of lifestyle kind of made it easy just to focus on your craft. And it was like, well, what are we gonna do? And guys would train twice a day, but there was no gym. We
Uh,
didn't have a gym. It was just a really makeshift gym. We trained on our turf game field, so we didn't have an extra facility going there. Our recovery, we had like a massage gun. I think that was it. We didn't have foam rolls. We didn't have the pants. We didn't have hot tubs or anything like that. Things have since changed. I think with
right, right.
money and influx, they've
Yeah,
sold.
yeah.
They sold the winger in San Jose. Um, Pellegrino was at Glimt after me, but they just sold him to San Jose for 100 million kroner. 100 million kroner gets you a lot of stuff in the locker. Let me tell you
Yeah,
that much.
yeah.
So it was a lot more simple, but it allowed me to kind of really focus in on my game and kind of be alone. And I tried to um, manage that the best as possible. There's definitely a lot of homesickness when you're that far from home, but I'm a social person. I tried to make friends. I learned Norwegian. I try to engulf myself as much in the culture because I don't believe in just sitting on the couch and letting it go by. So I said, if I'm
Yeah.
going to live here, let's live here.
Yep.
And I was so fortunate. There's such incredible people there at Glimt. Um, a lot of the same people are there today, and it's so awesome to see how the club's really taken off. And it's one of the most fun times in my career for a different reason, but something I'll look back on and just cherish and hope to bring my kids back there one day.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, so we've talked about, right, you're at Minnesota now. We've talked about your loan spells. We've talked about first getting drafted. In between all of that, we had some time at Portland. I'm going to guess that was with Caleb Porter connection coming back into place. Yes.
Yes,
There
yes.
we go. So you're back reunited. It feels so good. Um, so now you're here. Had a time at Houston briefly, but you've bounced around to a few different clubs in the MLS in a few different parts of the country. How do you kind of relate each one, if there is, or how do you differ each one? Obviously, each environment, there's a different coach, different staff, different players, so all of that's going to change and vary. But what do you kind of associate each location with? Or hey, Portland, I really loved that the food they fed us was freaking amazing. Or in Houston, we got to go to the rodeos for free, right? Whatever that may be.
That's tough because all of them are very different. I think Minneapolis and Portland are the most similar in terms of the footballing culture and the political stance and the size of the city and the
Mhm.
foodiness. I think they're very similar in that sense. Houston was an interesting time in my life because I was there during COVID. I got there in 2020. I played 2 matches and then it just shut down. But there's always blessings and everything. And I was able to get there as my son was about 5 months. And I got to spend so much time with him outside because it was hot,
Yeah,
very, very hot.
yeah.
Um, and I would say the biggest things that all the clubs have in common is their ambition. Is I left right as Portland had renovated their facility. There was talks of getting another grass training pitch. They they've gutted the whole facility. It used to be a little small gym, a little auditorium. I'm talking little like business rooms where you cram chairs in,
Right.
just a pull up screen, small locker room and stuff. And Merritt basically said, I want to redo all this and make it one of the premier places in the league. And then I got to Houston, and they switched owners during that time. With Ted Siegel came in, and
Mm.
Ted's just pumped money in, changed the seats out in the stadium, bought out the whole facility, new pitch, new game pitch in their stadium, which is the best in the league. So their owners come in and said, you know what, I want to do that. And then obviously coming here, they're continuing that process as well in terms of, we just brought in new DPs, so the owners have an influx of money. So the one thing I'll say is I've been fortunate enough to play for clubs that really are aspiring to be among the upper echelon in the league. And I think the only thing holding back potentially all three of those is just they're not in these awesome, crazy geographic
Yeah. Location.
North Stars in a
Yeah.
sense, right? It's not
Yeah.
a New York, it's not Los Angeles, it's
Not
not
Miami.
Chicago.
It's
They're
not
kind of
DC.
smaller.
Yep.
Miami, they're smaller places, but they have the same ambition, and it's been fun to kind of be a little bit of the underdog in that sense and embrace that. And for me, I feel really lucky to have shared those experiences and to continually share those experiences.
No, that's good reflection. Well, we're getting to the end here. It's kind of crazy how fast this conversation is going by.
Flies by.
But one question, two parts, okay? Zarek, what is advice you would give your younger self to maybe alter or progress where you are currently? Versus what is advice you would give the listener that's in high school trying to maybe play at college, right? Maybe Akron's on their radar. Maybe it's just getting into college. Maybe it's that college guy trying to go professional. What advice would you give that person to try to get them to that next level?
I think I'll give the habit perspective, and then I'll give the actual tactical one, if that makes any
Okay,
sense.
okay.
I've been reflecting this past year, and for me, I would have looked back and probably changed two things if I would have focused on two things more in my career, and that would have been to uh, take lifting a little bit more seriously. I'm not talking crushing yourself. We don't be bodybuilders,
Right.
but at the most healthy points in my career, my muscles were strong because if you're going to play a lot of games and you're going to put a lot of stress, you need a lot of strength.
Mhm.
If you play a lot of games and your muscles aren't strong, injuries. We could preach diet. I don't think a lot of athletes nowadays with all the meals that are given to them have crazy bad diets. You can have
Yeah,
bad tendencies.
yeah,
But if you eat a good breakfast and a good lunch that's given you at the facility, just have you yourself have one good meal and you're fine. But the other one would be talk to somebody. I look back on my career and at times when I was the starter and I wasn't playing well, I probably should have talked to somebody. And then there's also times where I wasn't the starter and I wanted to be, and that was frustrating as well. So the ability to talk to somebody in those moments doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist or a sports, coach, but to get that off your mind and to potentially work with someone to develop strategies to progress yourself as much as possible because there's stressors whether you're the day in day out starter,
yeah,
whether you
yep.
never play, whether you get subbed in. So the best way you can figure out how to deal with those stressors and propel yourself is something that I did not do, and I wish I would have done that because I think again with those two things I could have been stronger so that when I was the starter I would have been able to keep my spot better, or when I was pushing I could have been in a even better mindset to get that starting spot and then to keep it.
Yeah,
And then the physical one is for the guys in college, or for the tactical one is play faster. You think you're playing fast, but I'm telling you, when you get to a pro environment, what you deem as fast, meaning like touch play, it's got to be touch play, touch play, touch play. It's got to be
yeah,
much quicker. So whatever you
yeah.
think is fast, play a half a second faster, and then go from there.
I love it. I know I've seen shoot when I was the admin on your guys' course. So it's this coaching course, all pro players. Most coaches usually jump in, do a session, right? And it's the random 45-year-old dude got the beer belly, right? Whatever. These guys are playing, and they're playing like at half speed, and it's still the fastest I've ever seen played. There's guys like you, Eric.
To
Man,
be fair, we did about 5 minutes of 11s.
yeah.
And the team we had it was Jimmy Medrano was on the left, Christian Dahome on the right, Christian Ramirez, Casper
Ramirez, yep.
Shavilko. I forget who. There was one or two other guys, but I remember we scored a goal, and it was like up, back, sprayed wide, cut back, dink back post, Casper like volley. It was like a
Yep.
proper goal.
I remember I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm just like, I was on my phone, like, just kind of half-assed. And I see the ball moving. I'm just like, oh shit. Put my phone
Yeah,
down and I'm like, no, I'm gonna watch this one. I'm
it
gonna watch
was co-
this.
that was fun. That was
Yeah.
fun. But again, for all those kids, you know, it's one thing to be physically ready and stuff like that, but in terms of just you put yourself in the best spot. If you can get the ball and complete your pass and then move again as quickly as possible and as clean as possible, those are the easiest ways to maintain that level. Then you can work in the physicality, then you can work in the tactics and things like that. But that's the easiest one for me to be like, hey, whatever you think is quick, play faster, and then go from there.
There we go. Well, Zarek, man, I want to thank you so much uh, for being a guest on here. You've got the playoffs coming up, so we're obviously rooting for you there. We've got Christian Ramirez, who will be a podcast guest. So I'm going to be rooting for him as well there. We'll see.
We're in two different conferences.
Yeah, two different times. So maybe best case we see you guys in the final.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. But other than that, man, I hope you have a good rest of the season. Hopefully you can stay healthy. You got another couple more years left in you. You know, keep pushing, man. Everyone over 30 is rooting for you, okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, my man. It was a pleasure.
Hey, cheers.